Hello everyone, it is Volshock doing a replay review for Tuerk. So right here, he is the tan. So this is DSD, Delta Siege Reborn Dry, or Remake Dry. So you can play this map really in any setting. Normally we played in 8v8s. And so you back spawned here. So traditionally in 8s, you have someone here, someone here, someone here, and someone here. And then traditionally in 8s, this is tech and this is air. But you guys are playing this, 6v6. So you're going to have some kind of open spawns. So let's talk first about your decision to spawn in back versus in front. When you look at it at first, you're like, oh, I have 3 mexes, this is awesome. But actually, these are 3.0 mexes. So it's more beneficial for you to spawn here because you're going to spend 50 less metal to get the same amount of income, right? Because if you get all 3, it's 150 metal and it's whatever it is, 2 energy a second to run them. Whereas for these ones, you get the 6 metal a second just off 2. So you save 50 metal and you save the BP, which is incredibly important when you're early on in the game, right? Because you want to get units out as soon as possible. So I would say on almost any map that you're playing, whenever you can, always try to take a forward position for a couple of reasons. So you spawned here and your opponent spawned here. Now, let's say you guys have exactly the same builds. You guys make the same units 100%. You guys comm walk at the same time. Okay. In the time that it takes you to get to here, he will probably already be here, right? That's relatively equidistant. So you guys are probably going to meet somewhere around here and you're going to fight. And let's just say you guys just come to a standstill, right? You guys both get here and the classic Frontline thing happens where you drop LLTs, he drops LLTs, you guys fight back and forth, whoop-de-doo. The problem with this is that granted, he doesn't have these back mexes here. He already got the only mexes that you want to contest in mid, right? This bottom lane has a bunch of mexes. So like each incremental little push that you can do is awesome, but he already won mid. Basically, all he needs to do if you spawn that far back is just hold these mexes and pork, and then he can out eco you. So it's much, much better to start here and then just send a constructor back to take those mexes, because it's always much easier to expand to defensive mexes than it is to expand to offensive mexes. So just for future reference and like any games or for anyone who's watching, always try to do a more forward spawn, like kind of to the limits of it so that you can affect the map faster, because otherwise you end up in situations where I haven't watched this yet, but I'm going to assume you aren't able to get these mexes early, but we'll see how it plays out. All right, and we are going to go. So you're going to 2-mex into wind. Just because DSD is a poverty map, I would actually probably prefer the 3rd, but I don't think this is wrong, especially because there's such a walk to that. So I think that's okay. And you're going to queue 4 wind. You probably don't need all 4 if it stays at 14. And then of course I'm going to curse you and it's going to drop. But so far this is like a standard 2-mex opening, which is fine. And you've got, what do you got? You have a core bot lab support, another core bot lab support, no vehicles, interesting. Core bots, arm bots, core bots. Okay, so no one opens air. He does, but that's beside the point. Okay, you're gonna open with 3 scouting ticks. I like this so far. Into 1 con. Just so you know, you had like a slight little delay there. When you're building, if you hit O and then hit shift and then Q after, as soon as it's done, you'll immediately start boosting. And you got to take that max right away. I think that's the first thing you want to do, is take that max, because if you have metal, you can always make E, right? You can always just make solars or whatever. So in terms of openings, I don't like this as much. I think that you never want to leave your lab with no BP, but I understand why you're doing this. I think you probably could have kept him on and then gotten out that one and then kept going, but it's a minor efficiency. And then you're gonna comm walk forward. Okay. And we have scouting ticks. So he'll come out and he can boost a lab. You have a pawn there. You're still floating a bit of metal. Before you go all the way down, I think you just need a radar, right? Or maybe you could high ground radar here. Is that what you do? High ground radar there is also good, but I think you want a radar here because something that's really scary, especially when that position falls, is generally they'll have a radar and it'll see kind of like that. And so you're fine if like attacks come through middle, but a lot of the raids will come like this and you won't see them on radar. So it's nice to have the backup radar, just so you know. So, but you're gonna put a radar there, so that's good. And you're gonna 2mexes and LLTs. Okay, and we see units coming there, and what are we making? I think this key is fine, right? You want a good mixture of pawns and Roccos. You probably want to make more pawns earlier because this is a vast open space, so it makes sense for you to just be producing pawns to cover as much area as possible. You see this dot, you gotta... Okay, and here's his commander. So that's quite literally what we talked about. But all right, and then you're gonna go for con turret. I don't hate that. I think, but actually, you know, I think it's fine. I think you can do that, and that's completely fine. You got some stuff rating, and you're good. Commander is idle. One thing no one on your team is reclaiming. I think that on DSD, normally it's a little different because a lot of times the techer will eat all these, but there's a ton of reclaim on DSD, right? Like on your side of the map, there's 10 KE, which for the price of one las that you can use on the front line later, I think is totally worth it. So you see the raids coming. You start making a beamer. I think you probably could have just made an LLT, but the beamer for the range, I guess, makes sense. I think here you cancel it and just do that because you're kind of going to stall out your economy. All right, and then we see that homie has an LLT there, just like we thought he would. Right, so I turned on your view just because I like to watch the person's view, so I don't know when he walked, but I'm guessing you guys walked somewhere around the same time, right? In this game, you're kind of lucking out because of the spawns. You know, you are able to get both of these, but if this player had spawned here, like you did on your ally, this guy would be a full 2mexes ahead of you, right? And it'd be pretty scary because that's 6 and that's 6, so that's 12, but then he'd have the extra 4 here, and he'd just completely out-eco you, right? And so that's just going back to why you want to spawn front. All right, comms coming here. You've got pawns defending, which I like. You're going to have Rockapots out, so you can chip away at that. Oh, you stopped building it to build that. Okay, so now both of them are here. This is one of those things where sometimes it's nice to have a few more cons. I would probably be more on the side of making more cons, especially like with a full windy, because every con is, I mean, their bot cons, so they're only 7 E a second, but it's still kind of nice. So I would say maybe more cons before you drop the nano, but I'm not totally opposed to the nano. I think you just need to get the nano done sooner. Something that you'll see a lot of people do is they'll actually drop the nano like with their very first con or their second con, and then finish it with their commander and then comm walk, because then you know for sure you have all the BP you need in base, at least to start. Granted, you haven't been floating an insane amount of metal, so I think you're doing okay spending it. And we're going to go up here. You're going to ask for a transport. Awesome. I like that. So anyway, I think one las to reclaim totally would have been worth it. Oh, this guy got in deep. Good work. Okay, we don't know what's here, but I like that you're setting up LLTs right at the range. So he's raiding, and this dude's units are over here. I'm not sure why you want to keep your pawns here, although you just selected them, so maybe you're going to move, but I think it makes way more sense for you to just go like this and just follow what he did, right? We haven't seen Shuris. We know that there's core air, but you probably have enough pawns to survive a few small Shuris, and you should be able to just roll over and attack him. If his units are there, they can attack here, and your commander with some LLTs can easily push back his comm or whatever else is here. I mean, we have radar, right? Where's your radar range? So you probably need another, you definitely need another frontline radar to see, but it doesn't look like there's really anything else here. Yeah, so all these units, these guys should just be going and raiding with the homie. Because I think he's gonna do, I mean, he's gonna do a ton of damage. If your units were with him, you guys could probably, actually, he might fully wipe that base anyway. There's a scent. Okay. And you're gonna drop E-Store. I like that. Somewhere around 5 minutes for E-Store is totally good. You've got your first rocket bot. You can start chipping. Definitely want a radar frontline. Two things. So one, that's a little scary. First, you always want frontline radar just so that you can actually see what's over here, right? Like you have this radar, but it's not going to show you everything. So the radar that you want is here. The other thing is that, remember, rocket bots are garbage at shooting at radar dots. So T1 radars have 680 LOS. If you look in the bottom left corner, right? So a frontline radar that's like right here will give you incredible frontline vision, and then your Roccos can just chip away and they won't miss. So never forget to drop radars, right? That's the time honored. Clyretta is requesting radar. We see a scout plane and we see a raid here. Is there more coming? Oh yeah. All right, so as soon as we see bombers, we need to immediately react. The best thing to do is always just spam out crossbows. You can drop nettles as well. The one reason why crossbows are nice is that, especially on something like this, like DSD, like they'll fly, they'll bomb, they'll come here. And if they see nettles, they can just do this. Right? And so crossbows are nice because you can like move them down and kind of chase around. So I would always try to make crossbows. They're a little bit less damage. I think a nettle's like 70 something. Hold on, where's the nettle? 67, and a crossbow is 55, right? But they have slightly more range. Regardless, I would start spamming crossbows. And you've got your rocket bots, so you can keep pushing, which is nice. And a little late on your pawn response, but that happens. We all APM stall. Your homie's kind of getting cleaned up. Where are these going? Oh, they're going for red. Oh, that's painful. He did not make AA. Okay, so you're going to come here and you're going to help him, which is nice. I know you're like APM fighting down here. I would always try to just like keep expanding forward. You really, really need radar, but rocket bots always need something to retreat to, right? So I think one of the best things you can do is just be like LLT, 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 LLT. And like a lot of people love to do this like vertical line of LLTs, but it's not super useful a lot of times. It's much better, I think, to do kind of like either a line like that where you're going or a line straight like that. And then your rocket bots will always have something to kind of retreat to, and you can back up as needed. Anyway, keep chipping away with the rocket bots, which is good. Here come the bombers. You made 2 nettles. Okay, so you actually did have a good response. So nettles or crossbows. I would prefer crossbows, but unfortunately, does he get, these are core bombers, so they'll snipe wind. Oh my God, and it didn't die. Yeah, that's painful. Okay, so back on front, we're not pushing. Always got to push. I think it's only, yeah, it's a Centurion and 2 rockets here, couple Centurions. You should totally have been pushing this like this whole time. And if you have more LLTs, they can't really do anything about that, right? The Cents are scary, but if you have LLTs in your commander, you can just like back up into the LLTs while the Roccos chip, and then you can D-gun kind of when it makes sense. That, oh my God, did that die yet? Yeah, okay, that died. All right, and you're gonna start rebuilding your E-economy. I hope you don't make that Juno, but I remember someone saying something in the thread about it, so we'll see. All right, I don't think you ever want to throw away pawns like this, because they're not going to get like it's pawns ringing into a commander and Centurions. It's like all the counters to them. Just keep them back. If you want the pawn vision, you can kind of run them like this. Like a great thing to do is like you can kind of do like a like a fight command forward, so they're attacking at the closest thing, and then micro your pawn and kind of like do this, you know, like run up kind of like in a path like that, you know, and then like when the rockets shoot, hit stop or reverse direction, and like all the rockets shoot past you. All right, bombing run already happened, and we are making a crossbow. So, couple of things here. I don't think it makes sense for you to make a crossbow now because this guy is already going air, right? So, yeah, you were bombed. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but like this guy's going air. I think it makes way more sense. That's bad. It makes way more sense for you to just like make units or do anything else. You already have 2 nettles here. I don't think this crossbow is a good kind of use of space. The other thing is that like half of it is off the map, right? If you look at its range, the purple range, I think granted you want it in range for this, but even if you move it just a little bit forward, it'll kind of cover more area, which is always positive. All right, so Junos are a little crazy here for a couple of reasons. First is the primary use case for a Geo. Yes, they kill mines. Yes, they kill radars, but you don't have to deal with that right now, right? Like you're not really fighting, you're not fighting jammers, you're not really worried about radar all that much. And then the other major use case is like versus tick spam, versus scout spam. It's 6 minutes. No one is going to have the resources to scout spam until like their first fusion, right? Which is in a, you know, in a 6v6 might be 12 minutes, you know? Making it this early is just crazy because like there's no way you're going to get value from it. The other problem with it is how insanely expensive they are. So 640 metal, that's like 3 stouts, right? That's a ton of, oops, I have the wrong person selected. That's a ton of other units, right? You could have whatever, 5 rocket bots, almost 6 rocket bots for it. And so you would much rather have 6 rocket bots here than the Juno at this point. The other thing is that even though you're not fully e-stalling now, 17,000 energy is absolutely insane in T1. To give you an idea, a T1 Geo, which everyone is like, oh my God, you need to make e-storage because Geos are so expensive. They're 13,000. That's like the most e-expensive thing in all of T1. Right? It's like basically a T2 unit in cost, but it's in T1. You don't need to be making this right now. You can definitely make it later, but right now, making this is kind of gimping the rest of your game because you're not going to have as many units and you're going to have a bunch of kind of other issues. You do have a comm moving to front now, which is good. And you're making an LLT. Try to keep your rocket bots in front of your LLTs. All right, one thing, you asked for a trans and you didn't get it. I would definitely ask again. An untapped Geo at this point is just absurd. You always want to take Geos there. Even on, I mean, this is an incredibly good wind map for the most part, but Geo's still amazing here. So it totally makes sense for you to get a T1 con, just fly up, tap it, and then maybe build some LLTs and, you know, some AA. But absolutely, you should be tapping this. And if you don't want to do that, then just ping it and say, hey, you know, WTF, someone take this. The other thing that I know you're bringing your con to the front now because you want to pork this. I cannot tell you the number of games on DSD that are lost because the person in your spawn, which is normally here, but you're here now, they push forward and they're like, oh yeah, I got both the mexes. I'm doing awesome. This is great. And then they don't look up and they don't realize that the enemy player took hill. And so what happens is their whole army moves here and then like 15 grunts just come in here and just kill everyone. So I think that you want to either like put some more LLTs or just put anything here. Right? Because you need to plan for blue, who has full access into your base right now. You need to figure out a way to protect it. One of the most common things you'll see is just like a massive minefield right here, because that works pretty well, especially against raiding units. Okay. we are M-stalling. We're M-stalling because we're making 2 insanely expensive buildings, right? To put it into perspective, no one on your team is going T2 yet, right? It's 7 minutes. You know, on a game like this where it's a little bit more kind of actiony, maybe it's a little bit harder to, you know, to pull it off. But to give you an idea, right? Like those 2 things are 1390. If you ate your lab, you're like almost all the way to T3. Do you know what I mean? Or sorry, to T2, not to T3. And like you could even eat that beamer because you wouldn't eat it, right? So you could eat probably both of those in your lab, and then you're like 600 metal short of just going T2 yourself. So the opportunity, like these are cool things to have later, but the opportunity cost of making them now is just kind of going to cripple you. And you can see because you're just like, you're stalling metal, right? So like you can't even make all the frontline LLT stuff that you want. And the other thing too is like what you're fighting here, the best counter to these are just overwatches, right? The heavy laser towers. If you have an overwatch like right here, you can deny that max and your rockets can outtrade the Centurions and the rockets you've seen here, but you don't have the metal to make it because you're making a crossbow, or sorry, a chainsaw, which probably isn't going to do too much. And then this Juno, which is just like an insane investment. And Juno missiles, it's like metal and energy to do them. Okay, so see how you keep missing? It's because you're firing at radar dots, right? And no one has pinpointers. So this is a situation where even like a frontline tick running back and forth will give you vision, or like we talked about before, just like a frontline radar. It gives you great vision. So getting whistled. Ooh, tough world out there. Okay. And you're getting bombed while your homie has fighters in the air. Standard team play. Okay. You're gonna drop that. Okay. Where you keep like fortifying this, but you've already kind of like, when you think about attacking in bar, right? You always want to be fighting for objectives. So fortifying right here isn't that cool because it doesn't protect the mechs, right? And it doesn't really even protect this because they can still kind of run like that. So instead of porking here, I think it makes way more sense for you to just keep pushing forward and try to pork, like, you know, you come up here so you can defend this mechs and take it. And then if you can take that mechs, then pork here. And if you can't take that mechs, at least get close enough that you can deny that mech so that you end up with a mechs advantage. But you can already see, right? His units are coming down. So it's not like you need to pork here anyway. You want to be kind of a little bit farther down. I think at this point, you probably want more rocket bots than anything else. I think that having a couple pawns on rotation is good, but the truth is that, especially when you see what you're fighting, right? There's a bunch of like Centurions. You can't, pawns are just never gonna do all that well into it. And this guy is core V, which means that if he wants to, if he sees a bunch of pawns, he can just drop a pounder. And like trying to use pawns into Centurion pounder is going to be the most painful experience of your life. So just make rocket bots, because they basically, as long as they have LLT support, rocket bots can outfight, or at least relatively equally well fight, all other T1 comps. So once your frontline is established here, just more rocket bots, maybe a few res bots. And then you also want to figure out, once you have like 10 or so rocket bots, you can just stop making them, and then you can do your T2 transition. I'm also going to say, I don't think you need a jammer here. Well, one, because it's an insane amount of E, and I think you've just been short on E this whole time. This metal and everything else would be better spent on anything else. Like for that, I think you might as well just have made an Overwatch or something else. You also still don't have radar here, which you desperately need. I know you wanted me to look at more of your T2, so I'm trying to go through as quickly as I can and just pointing out some major stuff. All right, you've been M-stalling forever because you're still trying to build this, right? And you've built this, and there's kind of no reason for it. Your ally already went figs. All right, he's pushing here. So, oh, and there's Rex. Don't you have a res bot? We got to go get all these, man. Look at that. Look at all that metal. So, this max has just been chilling here for like multiple minutes. It's like 180 metal probably that you just haven't gotten because we haven't gotten here. So always try to tap your mexes whenever you can. Also, he's struggling a bit now, but he's been pushing down here for a while, right? And it's super important for you to come up here and just poke. You don't have to kill anything, but the problem is you basically haven't attacked in minutes. And so Teal, who's right here, he's like, oh, well, I guess he doesn't want to fight me. So he just keeps sending his units down, right? That's your lane opponent that they keep having to fight. So what makes more sense is for you to just be up here chipping so that even if you aren't killing anything and you just run up, shoot, come back, repair, run up, shoot, come back, repair, at least he has to keep units here. The fact that he doesn't have to keep units here is like really, really scary. Okay. You are surviving by the grace of your teammates right now. Look at what this Juno drains every second. 2.7 metal, right? Which is pretty substantial for you. And then 160 E. That's like, that's almost half your E production, and all of your E is wind. When that wind drops, this Juno, I bet, will probably just completely kill your entire E economy. And there's no need for you to have one right now, right? There's no tick spam. And even if there was earlier on, you can just drop a couple beamers, and beamers just completely invalidate tick spam. Like it does nothing against it. So for that reason, both of these are not worth it. And just like, think about that drain. I think these three things combined with your lab into T2 would have been much, much better. Ooh. Does he get away? Oh my god, he gets away on 55 HP. Then you guys still don't have, there's no T2? And the no T2. Kinda brutal. Oh, and we got a frontline radar, let's go! Okay, so you got the radar, and see, look at how much better your shots are right now. They're way more accurate, and every shot is hitting. So he has to back up. Next time, if you have a chance like that, the thing that's better is if you can I guess I won't do it because we're in a replay, but if you area set target like that, they'll like attack and then attack and then attack and then attack. And that way, like the first volley automatically kills one person. The second volley automatically kills one person, right? And then you end up with a unit advantage because you actually killed those. Right now, these can just back off and get repaired. And then it's like you didn't really do any damage. Regardless though, good work, you're applying pressure. I don't think we really want thugs here. I think that at this point, what we really want is to try to do a T2 transition. A little bit of a raid there, but they're handling it and you're pushing. All right, good. So you got a frontline tick for vision. Awesome. Where is he? Okay. So you're okay. So, a couple things here. You see him go gauntlet. You see he started to build a gauntlet, right? Like you saw that in your radar shadow. Much better than what you're trying to do here. Well, there's a few things. So first, these, see how he's hurt? These should be on repeat. So the easiest thing you can do is go repeat, click back here, and then hit repair like that. And then they'll walk back here, and whenever something is hurt like him, they'll come up, they'll repair him, and then they just go right back. So use that next time so that these guys are always active. And you can also do it where you go like click, repair, and then reclaim, and then, you know, and then back like that. And you could even do like repair, res, reclaim, back type of thing. And then it's like anything that happens, right? Like if there's something hurt, they'll repair it. You can also do it with a fight command if you want, but the fight command is kind of weird because it'll like eat wreck sometimes, but any way you want to do that makes sense. Okay. 1250. That's a T2 lab, right? That's basically a T2 lab and almost a T2 con. You don't even have this max, and you're making this gauntlet. I think that if you want to just break this position, the far simpler thing to do is you already have a jammer here. Just make a jammer a little bit farther up and just go con bomb him, right? If you have a jammer, let's say right here, the line of it I think was about there. You can literally just build another E-store, cloak your commander, walk up right here, and self D, right? When you're right here, you'd see all of that. Your self D will, I think, would kill almost every single thing there, and you would get his commander. A lot of times I see people make gauntlets because, well, I don't know why people make gauntlets. Anyway, as a general rule, never make this because it's not, people get confused by this because they're like, oh, it has good range and all this stuff. Like look at the range. It has so much control and it can chip away and, you know, blah, blah, blah. It isn't that the gauntlets are bad units. Gauntlets are great units if the game never progresses past T1. But the game always progresses past T1, right? And actually, to be fair, gauntlets just get run down anyway by like 6 stouts would just run up and kill this. But the problem is that 1200 metal combined with these is like a T2 lab, right? And what's scarier, one gauntlet or a bunch of T2 mexes and 10 Mausers running into you, right? And so the issue with these is like, it's not even, it's just not, they're just not great. Anyway, I'll stop ranting. So you saw it there. One more jammer up there, like just drop the jammer, run up, con bomb, and you just completely win your lane. These guys, oh, you're repairing now. Perfect. All right, how's our base looking? We got some idle cons. Remember on the bottom, you'll have like the little bar. So try to have those do stuff. I don't think you want thugs here. I literally think you just want pure Rocco. And you want to always make sure you spread your Roccos out. Oh, what is he? What on earth? Okay, well. Yeah, he actually got kind of low from that. Okay, good. So at least you're chipping, you're applying some, maybe back up a little more, you're applying some pressure. That's good. And so this is the concern, right? Those could have totally gone like that. You need something here to defend that, but we talked about it before. All right, let's speed this up and see. All right, you guys skirmish a bit. Looks like he gets bombed. They bomb and kill the gauntlet for you. That's awesome. Fortunately, he's getting all this reclaim, but that's life. Okay, have you fired? So you fired this and you've gotten 2 kills, right? And this entire game, you've been pulling like 400 to 500 energy and you're never producing that much. It's just not happening. So that should tell you 2 things, right? One, don't make Junos, not this early. But 2, maybe you need to have more people building wind. Remember, like there are really hard set rules on it because it's super map dependent, but an unassisted con building arm wind is like 2 metal a second, right? It's 1.9. Core wind I think is 2.1, so you can just say 2 metal a second and you just average it out. So if you look at your income, right, if one con is building, it's, you know, your income goes from 14 to 12. If 2 are building, it goes from 14 to 10. That's a pretty big drop, so just be aware of it. I think at this point that metal is probably better spent going T2. Because you don't, it's like almost 15 minutes and no one is T2. Oh my god, I take it back. He's T2. So yeah, just buy a T2 con from this guy, I guess, at this point. But you could have gone T2 much earlier if you hadn't gone Juno. The bomber did a ton of great work there, though. And then looks like you're gonna push forward. He built an agitator. You guys double agitated? Truly the work of the gods. He dies. All right, so perfect. Whenever a comm dies, always think like if you can get that metal, you can almost always just go T2, right? Because your T1 lab is going to be like 600 to 700 metal, and that's 1250. So if you just eat your lab, you'll already be at 2K. And him losing his commander means he probably doesn't have a lot of units. So you just want to come up here, immediately eat this, and then you can just go T2. Okay, he'll eat it. Does he go T2? He doesn't. He's going to put into Asaurus on DSD. Okay, and now he's handing out T2, which is wonderful. You need to get your T2 from him much sooner. I would also say at this point, the game has gone on long enough that if you are T1, I would swap out of bots and just go vehicles. Just, you know, right now I'd say go T2 anyway, but as the game goes longer, you want to go vehicles because a ball of stouts always are going to do very well fighting most things. And then also you'd have mine layers for that. Okay, we're going to speed this up and try to go a little bit later. Spending a lot of time without creating pressure, man. Always keep trying to create pressure. Also, because you have this forward one, make sure you eat your back one. And you're gonna go T2 bots now. I would say T2 vehicles are vastly superior here. So ARM bots really aren't that great for a lot of situations. The lane that you're fighting is just flat. Do you know what I mean? Like you just want to, you can just make like bulls or starlights. If there's an opening, you can raid with jags. So you want that. The other thing is that ARM bots don't have a great siege unit, right? Like if you think about like their siege units, it's like snipers, which are so incredibly fragile. As soon as they're caught, they're dead. And they only have 900 range, and fat boys, right? And the issue that you're going to run into is because he's controlled this the whole time. If he just like, there's a gauntlet there that's shelling you, right? Like he can keep building all sorts of defensive stuff here and it'll just wreck all your mexes and you'll lose control. The easiest way to kill that is just like an ambassador. An ambassador is stealthy. The height difference doesn't matter for its rocket. And you could just have like 1 to 2 ambassadors and they can just come up here and they can just snipe Geo, snipe that, snipe that, snipe that. And there's like almost nothing he can do about it, right? He'd have to come down and fight you. But if you're ARM bots, you don't really have that option. What you'd have to do instead is like sneak a spy bot up, but then it's really difficult because your snipers are going to have to be cloaked and they're going to have to walk up here because if your snipers, it's really hard to draw like that. If your snipers are down here, unless the buildings are right at the edge, they don't have the ability to shoot it, right? Because it's like their LOS gets blocked. Anyway. Oops. All right, you can eat a little bit here. So you could have just bought a T2 from that guy and then upgraded your mexes much sooner, but that's how it goes. You've got 3 missiles stockpiled. And you guys are in the legendary Gauntlet War. But you took these 2 mexes, which is great. What isn't great is that you're really inactive here. You need to be up here using these rocket bots wherever possible. Ooh, you might die here. Okay. Good D-gun, second D-gun. You're E-stalling. Your Juno is doing you no favors. Self-D and walk-in, bold, but I like it. Okay, all right. I think that was actually a relatively good use of your comm. You kill all that, and if you can run up and eat your commander, that'll forge your T2 even more. You could probably even res it. I don't know. Actually, you don't really have. Well, they're coming up. You have rep control with all those people coming up. Red is running into pork up there, but okay. And he's gonna come eat it for you. Okay. All right. That works. You guys broke open there. Remember, you can always give cues to units when they're here. So when you were building, when he was building there, you can just really easily do like, you know, area mix that, area mix that, area mix that. And then the butlers will do that so that that's not happening. I would also say, granted, this is much more of a me thing. I don't think you want this lab just because I don't think armed vehicle or armed bots are very good, and armed vehicles I think are vastly superior. I would probably just metal storage and then eat the lab. And then as those guys are upgrading and doing all of that and coming to the front, once you start to have a little bit more money, you can totally, oh wait, did he die? Ooh, take it back. Well, you should instead just try to build a forward lab, like somewhere up here, right? Like not, you don't want to like, I will conquer, you know, like with your forward lab here. But if your lab is like there, I think you're completely fine. Or maybe even just like a little bit farther back, and then you can just do like a V swap there. Okay. We've been going for 40 minutes and we're not into T2 yet. We are 20 minutes into an hour-long game. So we are going to speed up a little bit. I think you probably could have done a few more raids up there. Wait, what have you... Huh? Okay, so keep in mind, like when you hit T2, the most important thing always is to like up all of your mexes first, right? Fat boys, let's go. So I think instead of doing that fusion, or if you wanted to do that fusion, you totally could have dropped the fusion and then just sent these guys forward. One of the most important things after you hit T2 is like, well, first you have to up all your mexes, right? But also like T2 pork is so important on the front line. Like 2 pit bulls and a rattlesnake stop that entire push, right? And if you've upped all your mexes, you totally have that. Also, I would say, unless you're given a console, or if your plan is to immediately eat your lab and do nothing but micro the gunslinger, never build one. Because it's super hard for them to get value unless you're just putting all of your APM on there. So sometimes like what you'll see people do is they'll build 2 or 1 and then eat their lab and then Q an AFIS, right? And their AFIS is going to take like 2 minutes to finish, so they can go micro their gunslingers on the front line. But gunslingers are slow, right? They don't have great range. They don't really even bully a lot of T1, and especially because you've been fighting versus armed vehicles, like if Janus come up, they can just snipe the gunslingers a lot of times, unless they have like Giga XP. So in this situation, I probably would say just go Hound instead. Also, you gotta react to this, my dude. We gotta react. Okay, Fat Boy's coming. All you need to do here is spam ticks. Gunslingers don't. That Fat Boy's gonna wreck you. So you want to go fight those, and then just spam ticks at this guy. Ticks will literally kill a Fat Boy. You just send them in like one at a time and spread them. This Fat Boy is gonna get unlimited value. Sweet Jesus. Does he kill the fusion too? So you could have stopped this if you just spam ticks. And did your gunslingers. Snipers aren't so lucky. Snipers aren't bad here. I think you probably could have just gone Hound and had way more kind of use. Okay, so let's talk just in general. When you get to T2, always up your mexes first. That's the single most important thing, right? Like if you think about your fusion, right, it's going to give you 1,000 energy. Generally speaking, you can convert, you know, like you can drop one T2 converter for it, which is only 10 metal a second. The mexes, oh, you got to rebuild that mex, by the way. The mexes you have here, right? These two mexes, those are 16 metal a second. These ones are 12 metal a second. So basically, just taking one of these mexes is the same metal income as a fusion. And if you're spamming wind, which you could totally do like off butlers here, you won't need a fusion right away. I think the much safer play, like going fusion, is really, really greedy. I think it makes way more sense for you, especially with like a weak frontline here, to just try to up your mexes and then start T2 porking up here. And you can have like a few hounds or something else just to kind of like fight units. But if you had a few hounds here, you could have killed all those vehicles that came before they did too much damage. And then for the fat boys, you just drop into ticks, and an unsupported fat boy versus ticks will just die, right? They don't do self damage, but the ticks just run circles around them and just kill them. See, so homie's got the idea. He knows what's up. He's got the persecutor. So you've gotten 13 kills with this thing. Still, well, definitely not worth it. And we got Recluse there. You gotta take these. Super, super important. So whenever you see Recluse raiding, you either need to respond with Recluse of your own, or you have to go air. The problem with Recluse is they can't Shurian because they have Emp resistance. So totally need you totally need to come up here and pork this, right? Like, instead of greedily making fusions in your base, before you greed, you always have to pork your front, right? Your front has to be safe. So like, you putting both these fusions down instead of just making an army and coming up here and like putting some pit bulls and a rattle and then like pushing forward basically killed red, right? Because if you had been here with pork, the spiders would have had to come here, and then they would have had to go this way, and then his commander and the pork and the other stuff would have been there. The fact that they like snuck around there means that they can go over there and kill. They can kill the wind on the back, and your rattle would probably be able to shoot, and I don't know if it would kill him, but it definitely do a lot of damage. So I think you're over greeting here. With your first fusion, always try to set up your pork and everything else. Also, after first fusion, anti-nuke is good. I'd also say get anti-stealth, because anti-nuke without anti-stealth is kind of useless. You don't need your A-solars anymore, so you can eat them. And then you definitely want to... You gotta go up here and take all these in pork, which I talked about. So, a couple of things that I would do at this point in the game. First is, you are armed bots, so you have access to butlers, and butlers are ridiculous wind generation, right? So I think you probably could have dropped 3-4 butlers and just been like wind, 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 wind. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think that would have been that's a great thing to do. The other thing you want to start planning for is when the game gets into T2, you want to actually set up your Aphis farm, right? Like, if you think of how a normal Aphis farm looks, people have all sorts of variations on it, but the most traditional is like the 3x3, right? Show you. So like a full Aphis farm is like this, right? And then in between the Aphis and the converters, there's 3 sets of nanos. So it's like, normally it'll be 3 converters, 3 nanos, 3 Aphis, 3 nanos, 3 converters, right? So it's like 3, 3, 3, 3. Sorry, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Yeah. So you want to think like, okay, if this game gets miserable and we have to go super late game, you want to start building your build power and everything else in a way that you can easily use it for like an Aphis farm. So here, for example, like you have these, and where you put those, instead of putting the fusion there, just move it and put it, instead of having it here, put it like right here, or sorry, like right here, right? And then you can start backfilling nanos here, and you can put more converters here. And then it's like, oh yeah, you've got a fusion, you've got a few nanos, you've got a few converters. But then if the game goes longer, your build power in your base is already set up. And so it's like, oh, I have a bunch of metal. Let me drop my Aphis here now, right? And then let me add more converters. Let me add more nanos. And then you could like can have a few more nanos this way, and then you're like, oh, okay, I'm big. Then you can eat all of this, and then you can do, you know, kind of like the full blueprint that I was showing you before, this guy, right? And so it would be like, you'd end up like this eventually, but you want to pre-build your base so that you can do that. You know, you can definitely eat a bunch of this stuff later and like have an aphis farm, but it's much easier from the onset to just build your base so that you can aphis farm really easily. Also, I said it before, but always, once you have a fusion, just eat your A solars and your solars. They're not useless. And because it's a good wind map, just wind farm, right? You could have you could literally fill all of that with wind. You could fill this with wind. Your front's dead, but you could I'd probably farm wind here, but I'm me, you know. I mean, average wind is 11.9. An aphis for arm versus wind above 12.2 is more efficient. But obviously aphis take longer to kick on. So I think you could totally spam a bit of wind and you'd totally be legit, right? And then you can just aphis as you have more and have the BP for it. Okay. You got a spy bot out, so you see that, and that's awesome. Your front door has just been wide open forever. Definitely, you just need, yeah, here we go. So we got butlers, we got everything else coming. Okay, good. Please don't make gunslingers. All right, and then you're gonna have units come up, so that's good. So I think in these situations, that's a Serb. That's rough. In these situations, your goal should just be get to the front and pork, right? Take these mexes, and then you're going to try to pork here. You're obviously going to be in range of this Serb now, so as soon as you see it fire, you're not going to do that. Also, I wouldn't recommend, like, that's kind of a crazy pork. Like, you want a really good mixture of different things, right? Like that is only good at killing like T3 or heavy T2 if it died to like 30 ticks probably, right? If they were spread out. So my pork blueprint's kind of a joke. I could show it to you, but like that blueprint has 4 pit bulls, a rattle, a pulsar, and 2 beamers. And I think actually a couple of those are also lightning turrets. I don't actually use this very much, but to give you an idea of like distribution of what frontline T2 pork should be like, right? You want pit bulls because they're going to stop all the stuff that rushes you, right? It'll stop bulls, it'll stop tigers, it'll stop jags. You want the rattlesnake because it's like the AoE that'll kind of kick off some, you know, like starlight, snipers, etc. It's good against that. And then you want the pulsar because it's good against all the bulky T2, but then it also kills T3, and then you can just add more for what you need. But I think what you have here is just a little crazy, right? It makes way more sense for you to just have something like that and just drop it there. Donation, let's go. I mean, why are we not? We gotta reclaim. Oh, he reclaimed it all. Okay, well, there was a big donation for you, but but you didn't quite eat it all. Okay, let's talk about, so you'd want to fortify here, and unfortunately you're still armed bots, which are garbage in this situation, so definitely always think about swapping. But even as armed bots, what can you do to break this? Probably the easiest thing is just spybot empit and then rush it. If your vehicles, right, ambassadors do awesome against it. The other like brutal thing on this map is that you can put ambassadors like right here, and the Serb can't hit them because it'll hit the cliff, and the ambassadors can just go like this and they can just shoot it until it dies, right? Unfortunately, our bots don't have that. They just have, you know, basically snipers and other stuff, but you're limited by what you have here. The other thing is, this isn't really well defended. Granted, we don't know that, but if you're ever in a situation where like you start kind of getting into this pork war, the most important thing that you can do is build like EMP launchers or attack nukes, because they'll let you just completely negate the enemy's pork. Okay. Let's think about what we're doing here, right? We're making units that are countered by the thing that's already here. So all of these units are in SERB range, and like the snipers, unless there's, you know, unless they like sneak like this and there's a jammer that's like hidden here and then they come up here, they're not going to be able to do anything to a SERB. Snipers are like, people really overvalue snipers. You have to remember they have 500 HP, right? 580 HP. Like most T1 units have like more than that, right? Like grunts are 270, but hold on, I don't think we can find one. I mean, like I think whistlers literally have more HP, but I don't see any. Stouts definitely do. The point is that basically any strong breeze will just kill a bunch of snipers, and Cerberus have massive AoE. So you can't really sniper into Serb unless you can guarantee that you're going to land a spy bot, which you don't want to do. So I would say pull these back a little bit, pull these back a little bit, pork here, and just do a tech switch into ambassadors and just go kill that. Or you could tack nuke it if you got a T2 con from your homie here. But your goal at this point, because you're not really sure, oh, he has tack nukes here. You're not really sure how late this game is going to go, right? Like, I don't feel like you guys have a super strong win condition or anything else. So what makes sense for you to do right here is just pork the bejesus out of your middle. And then I would probably drop like 1 to 2 Aphis and then try to think about a good win condition. Right? Like when you're thinking about win conditions on DSD, the most common, you know, late game win condition is just build a lull cannon right here. And the lull cannon will kill, like, it can base hit everything here. And then you can always, for LPRCs, you can always cheese their range. If you target the edge of the cliff, the shots will try to hit the edge of the cliff, but a lot of them miss and then they overshoot and then they'll hit the other person's base. So you could scale to eco as like your final win condition there. Bot's going reasonably well though. So I think you could probably break it if you just went like vanguards, and vanguards are amazing on this map, right? Because you could like vanguard up here and then start chipping away at his stuff. Or you could take some vanguards down here just so you can kill, you know, the counters. That's a tremor, I'm assuming. Yeah. So you could kill like the tremors and all the other stuff there. And then run through with with Razorbacks. Razors are not the best of units, but they definitely work. They can carry games. You know, alternatively, it's like if you go like 2 or 3 Aphis, you could probably just go Titan and then just completely solo carry the game. So, all right, we're gonna speed it up a little bit. This is see if I can notice this. We missed the whole bottom death. Apologies. That should not have worked because there should be any sort of support with it. And you saw actually, right? Your snipers are here and they can't shoot up this. And so they like have issues over there. That's why you don't want to do that. And then this guy just got run over by core vehicles, the standard, the classic. And that's a situation where like, if you had pork here, your pulsar would actually be firing at a bunch of this stuff, and so would your rattle. And then if they tried to come up, you'd be able to stop them. Granted, there's still a tremor somewhere. 2 tremors, so you'd have some issues, but your supporting units could definitely help. All right, so we see this coming, and what is our response? I'm hoping Spybot. Sharpshooters. So this is a great... All right, that was pretty dope. Whenever you're like against these like big raids like this, if you just spy bot them, you can definitely do a ton of work, because if you amp anything, it'll die here. Unironically, sprinters will just kill this, or if you had tick spam. Tick spam just shreds everything that you see right here, right? I don't know why this guy doesn't have radar, but that's awesome for you. So at this point in the game, you just want to be bigger. I feel like you've committed so many resources into like welder, sniper, right? And like you've done a little bit of stuff, but it's like you killed a Serb that didn't, I guess it was kind of helping protect mid. But I think it makes way more sense for you to just pork and scale and then look at one of the breakpoints, right? Like for ARM, your breakpoints are like 1 Aphis Mara, you know, like if you have supporting energy, like 1 Aphis Mara, which I'm not a huge fan of, like 2 to 3 Aphis Vanguard Razor, 4 Aphis Thor, or like 4 Aphis Titan, 5 Aphis Titan. I think any of those would be a super easy win condition for you to execute, and you can just kind of scale behind Pork. I also think you really want spam here. Oh no, don't let this guy die. Your anti-nuke fires, which is cool. You know they have a nuke now. So the biggest issue that I see at the moment is you're just not really E-scaled. And I think you really need to be. There's just... This might be a little too loud, sorry. Hopefully you could actually hear me over that. Anyway, now that I've adjusted volume, should have checked that before. I would say... Yeah, just the biggest issue I see with your late game right now is just a lack of scaling. I think if you had Aphis farmed and you just kind of planned it a little bit better, you could have been massive because you didn't face that much pressure, and then you always want to Pork. Good, so this is like a much better kind of Pork breakdown. I also wouldn't preemptively build shields unless you're sure you need them. Okay. One thing I will say here is you need to stop making snipers. Snipers are kind of a noob trap. They're pretty good in some situations, but keep in mind, you've already seen that one of your enemies is core vehicles. Tremors just destroy snipers. There's basically nothing the snipers can do, right? Snipers are 900 range, right? And they've got like so little HP. Where's this dude's, or did he eat it? Where is it? A tremor is 1470 range, and each shot is 150 damage if it hits, and there's a lot of shots. So the tremor can just fully zone snipers. Like if you have snipers here and you're coming, the tremor will just lock that entire area down, and there's literally no counterplay for you as a sniper user. So when you see that, you need to pivot out of them. Arm bots are really a trap, I think, unless you're great at abusing spy bots, or if you're trying to abuse terrain, like if you're trying to like send recluses like that. All right, let's speed this up a little bit. Well, this guy has just been a master of eating all the wrecks. You need a bunch of res bots because like you could just, there's 2 razors here, right? You could literally have 2 razors and a shield and your pit bulls back, but instead you're eating them. This is one of the situations where like a group of res bots like he has would be dope because you just have 2 free razors. Okay, so I'm not really sure how much more I can really contribute to this game that I haven't already said. I think for me, the big things are, in just watching your gameplay, 1, try to scale E a little bit better. I think you could have had like massive wind farms on this map. Would have been totally cool. Try to Pork in places that make sense. Like you porked here, I think you wanted to Pork a little bit farther. But more importantly, like if you think games are going to go long, you really need to plan to scale, right? And also like 5 fusions is super inefficient. After like 2, I mean, granted you have been making units, but ideally you kind of want to have more than that. Unless you're like forced to make units, it makes way more sense for you to just drop Aphis. And if you have the BP, it's not really even an issue, right? Because 2 Aphis or 2 fusions are 8600 and an Aphis is like 97, I think. It's an Aphis, 97, right? So it's like if you have the BP in the storage, you can just eat two fusions and basically just make an Aphis, you know, with a little bit of extra, and then you go from 2000 metal a second to 3000 metal a second, which is a big bonus for essentially the same amount of metal. You guys want to try to be kiting them. So you have had this chainsaw for somewhere around 40 minutes and it has yet to kill a single thing. And that's why I say don't do it. I also say your Juno was really, really early. No one has really tick spammed you, right? I mean, I don't think anyone has really spammed, and I don't think you need it. It's just such a massive burden on your economy. It basically crippled your entire E-production for the first part of the game. Okay, so a couple other things here. This is almost over, thankfully. Whenever you're in these situations where there's just like this whole huge no man's land, one of the greatest things you can do is just drop like a T2 con and 10 butlers and just run up and just take all these mexes. Like, I think these are all 2s, aren't they? I mean, some of those are 3s, but like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll say you can't get those 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9, right? Like you're at, I mean, those are all, we'll say they're 2 medalists. Like that's, what is that? 9 times 2, no, 9 times 4. Wait, it's way more than that. I can't do math right now because this replay has gone on way too long. Apologies. Regardless, it's an absolute insane amount of metal. You want to go cap all of that. You're only at 81 metal a second, right? Like these 2 alone, one of these is 12, right? So like that's 12, that's 24, that's 32, that's 40, 48. Like there's so much metal here. Just build a massive builder army and escort it. And you could actually start here, go here, take those pork, go here, take those pork, go here, take those pork, etc. Right? You just want to expand and take back all of those. A lot of times you'll see people do it with air cons as well, which can be super, super useful. So, wait, what? Where are the bombers? Bombers are behind. The funny thing is that you actually do want AA now. Huh? So if you want to build that next time, just build an air lab and a couple nanos and just fly up here and then just drop the nanos and drop the T2 con and build it right there. If you build it there, it's gonna it'll like hit bases and stuff. If we could actually see. So here's the range of yours. And there's that one. So basically, if you build it up there, it hits 3 bases. If you build it there, it hits nothing. Anyway, you're about to get bombed. What you really want here is flak. Oh, and this guy made some manticores, which is dope. At this point, I wouldn't even say a chainsaw is that good. It's okay versus like liches, even then it's kind of like you prefer to have a screamer. But yeah, you would want to eat it and just bake flak instead. But on the bright side, I think did it get a kill? Oh, no, it's firing. No, it's gonna get a kill. It got its first kill. 49 minutes. Let's go. We can finish this out. Whenever you see a bunch of T3, it always makes sense for you to have a lot of, also after you've seen like the bombing runs, I think you're already flakking, but yeah, you want to have as much flak as possible. And it sucks because like your BP's here, but if you have butlers and other stuff, you want to try to build flak farther out, because then like when the bombers are coming, they die without ever dropping the bombs. The problem with building flak next to your base is that like as T2 bombers are coming, the flak will kill them, but it won't matter because they've already dropped their bombs. And so not only do they drop their payload and kill whatever they were killing, there's always the thing that happens where like the body flies like this and then somehow hits one of your nanos and chains all your nanos and you just rage. So yeah, try to build the flak a little bit farther out when you can. Spybot's coming out now, which is good. These LPRCs need to be way more forward up. Remember, LPRCs are garbage at shooting at units, right? Not only do they have bad accuracy, they don't really have great damage. They're designed for killing pork, for, you know, killing bases. So if you want to build them, just build them up there. There's even a bubble to protect them, right? If you build them up there, you can start sniping other people's bases. And at 52 minutes, we got you. T2's kind of off the table at this point, I think. You just want to be T3. And Vanguards are incredible to abuse on DSD as well. Juno doing a little bit there. Wow. So, ooh, that's really bad. You have 11 missiles, so you need to just be firing. You don't really have the eco for it, but at this point, ideally, you just want a spam lab or multiple spam labs to back your army up. And in that spam lab, you would want to have a bunch, you know, you'd want to have like Tick, Pawn, Resbot, AA bot, because T1 AA bots are amazing. But he's basically doing what you should be doing, because Titans are probably one of the best, if not the best unit in the game. So he can just kind of slow push you with it. But let's see how she turns out. Now that we're an hour and something into the game. Good God. Shiva push top does. So you just stopped scaling for some reason. I really feel like you needed to scale much, much sooner. Spy bots are awesome. You guys also don't have pinpointers, I don't think. Let's see pinpointers, at least on the minimap. Always make pinpointers, especially if you're going snipers. Technically, you need 3 for like 99%, but even just 2 pinpointers is okay. Your ally bombs and kind of wins the game there. Spy bot, nice. You gotta, where are your res bots, man? You gotta go res. Oh, you're just gonna eat and overflow it. In a situation like that, I would always try to res it. Like, it's not a contested, if it's a contested wreck, you don't want to eat it, but right now you're just eating a Titan and overflowing it to your team. You need way more BP. And yeah, okay. So see, this is his res Titan, and it just came up and like broke open that front line, and then you can just back it up and repair it. Because there have been a bunch of like bombing excursions, a couple of frontline screamers are actually super useful. Whoa, dude. Okay. Yes, that's a good defense. You also, like we talked about before, want other stuff in front of it, right? You need pit bulls and other things, because otherwise ticks just run through and kill it all. Well, I think for me, your biggest issue in late game came down to pork and scaling. You just didn't scale hard enough, and you stayed on T2 for like way too long. Paused. So just in summary, whenever you're spawning, try to spawn forward, try to contest the mexes, try to identify when you're either holding the mexes you want so that you can go T2 in base, or you know, just like pork where you're contesting your lane and then do whatever you can to go T2 earlier. I think if you had gone an early T2, you could have just gone armed vehicles and just run through the whole game. Your T2 con, you did a super greedy like double fusion thing instead of just porking. And what ended up happening is like this guy died and like they ran through and just did a bunch of damage. So you can definitely drop the fusion, but I would say much more important is like get the 3 mexes and then get those mexes and then drop a bunch of pork here. And even if you have like whatever 3 or 4 nanos, just building the fusion, that's completely fine. Your goal should be to always get all your T2 mexes before you really do anything else. The fact that you got that kind of meant that everyone was able to, that you went fusion and you didn't have units. Like Teal had that massive tank push that went through mid and kind of just screwed you, right? And then your ally here died just because you didn't have the metal or anything else. Also, when you're fighting somewhere totally flat, armed vehicles are kind of the best lab in the game when it's like super flat like that in a lot of situations, right? You have Bulls to just pick apart T1. You have Jags for raiding and for light AA. You have Starlights for anti-heavy and anti-T3. You have flak vehicles. So like the bombing runs that came, you would just have like 5 flak trucks and they just vanish. You have Gremlins for stealth scouting if you need them. And the cons are faster, right? And you have consoles. The consoles will run around and do that stuff. So I would say, you know, maybe think about your lab choice a little bit more. And then scaling, you can always wind scale. Like you could have had giga wind farms all over here. You could have just been the ultimate wind farmer with pork in middle. And then for your base, try to have a better layout, right? Try to preemptively plan instead of having like fusion, you know, I think you had like fusion. You had all these fusions all over. Just plan on like, all right, I can build my first fusion here and I've got like 2 nanos and then I can add, you know, 6 nanos there. And then when it's done, I can add converter. And then I can build an Aphis, right? And then I can add, you know, and I'll add some more nanos here. And then I'll add more nanos and converters, you know, like you just like preemptively plan it. Anyway, that's it. I hope the sound in the first part is good because it might have been a little overwhelming, but I guess we'll see in the recording. Peace.